I couldn't find a manufactured pet door
to fit the vinyl basement window that I just installed. I'll mount the door on a window screen frame. I need a frame that's 1 2/16 inches wide. The frame width for my window and for the kits I could find was only 3/4 of an inch wide. I found the cheapest way to get the parts I need was to special order a screen from my local hardware store. This 27 by 22.5 inch screen cost me $10 plus tax. I'll disassemble the screen.
The window screen I ordered is an American Craftsman window sold at Home Depot. Recently, Plygem bought American Craftsman brand from Anderson. If you choose to order a screen for its parts, be aware that channel width for screens are not standardized. If possible, take measurements from an existing screen.
I have all my parts. Something that will become important later, notice that two of these corner pieces have a raised corner on them. The window has a screen that slides back and forth. The plan is to keep the screen in this position, and I'll be able to open and close the window if I want to use the screen. In the other side of the window is where I'll put the cat door. I've removed the window screen and I've taken a measurement of the height. I'll use that for the height of the cat door. I'll measure the window opening to decide how wide to make the door. The two bottom outside corners have those two raised corners that I talked about earlier. And the top of the screen frame has two spring clips. Measure and mark the frame. Cut with a hacksaw. Repeat that process to cut the two side pieces. Ensure that the side pieces are of equal length and that the top and bottom pieces are also of equal length. Assemble the frame. Put the two corners with the raised corner on the outside bottom piece of the frame. Insert the spring clips onto the top piece of the screen frame. Then assemble the frame. Check to see that it's square. I'll test to make sure that the frame does fit in the window. I'll mark the outside perimeter with a pencil. I'll push the frame up against the spring clips as far as it'll go, and then mark the top. Now that I've determined how much clearance I have on the outside of the frame, I know what size to cut the piece of Lexan that I bought. The polycarbonate sheet that I'm using is 0.093 inches thick. That's about 2/16 of an inch.
I tried using a Dremel tool
And a cutting wheel that's used to cut plastic.
It took a long time just to make this small cut.
The best way I've found to cut it without using a saw, and if your saw speed's too fast, I'm thinking it might melt the plastic, is to use a new utility knife blade, clamp a straight edge on top of the piece that you're cutting onto a solid surface, then cut with the utility knife. And you'll have to do this multiple times, maybe until it's about halfway cut through the thickness. I clamped it down with a straight edge along the scored line. And I got a pretty clean cut that way.
I've attached a piece of Lexan to the outside face of the frame. It will keep the frame square and hold the hinges for the door. It had to be mounted on the outside face because there is only a small space between the window sash and the front face of the frame. The heads of the 632 flathead screws are flush with the front side of the frame.
I have a pair of hinges that were salvaged from something that I threw away. I'll try to cut off the flared end of the metal pin that goes through the hinge
using a Dremel tool with a metal cutting blade. I removed the pin and turned one of the hinge sides 180 degrees, then reinserted the pin.
Now the hinge will swing almost a full 360 degrees. Before I flipped one side of the hinge around, the range of motion was like this. I have the flap cut and the hinges mounted, and you can see that the door swings all the way. There is a gap around the perimeter of the flap. If there is a good amount of clearance between the window sash and the window screen frame, or if the pet flap that you want to install is a lot smaller than the perimeter of the screen, there's an easier approach that you can take. Mount a piece of Lexan on the screen frame, ensuring there's enough clearance around the perimeter so that you can install the frame into the window opening. Buy a manufactured pet flap, cut a hole in the Lexan, and mount the pet flap directly to the Lexan. In the beginning of the video, I pulled a piece of weather stripping off the screen frame. It has a channel on it.
The channel fits onto the edge of the Lexan.
The weather strip fills 3 of the gaps. I had a scrap piece of PVC garage door stop. I cut a piece of the rubber off of the stop and I made a door gasket. The rubber gasket fills the gap at the top. I bought a magnet for a cabinet door. I disassembled it for its magnet. I mounted a steel bolt into the bottom of the frame and the magnet on the bottom of the door. Then you can adjust the height of the bolt so that the door closes. Because I'm not using lock washers, I'll use Loctite's blue thread locker on the hinge bolts so that the vibration doesn't work the nuts loose on the bolts. This type can be broken loose with hand tools. To allow access to the window well from the outside, I'll remove one side of my window well cover. I hope you found this video helpful. A thumbs up is always appreciated. Click on the channel name, Know How Now, to find other videos. And thanks for watching.